stress levels of a teacher because she can really put all of her concentration into just a fewer areas and really make it a special lesson. Whereas if she had the whole lesson, you know, you just have more work to do.
What else?
More ideas and planning too to make the lesson better.
More ideas on planning. What about when you're teaching and you're in the middle of teaching and you just like lose your train of thought? Like you have somebody that's there that could jump in and kind of like assist, or like your students aren't comprehending what you're teaching them in that moment, and then you have that person that has that whole different teaching style to come in and be like, well, let's look at it in this perspective. So there's again that double teaching style there that can help students. What obstacles do you think might be a problem for team teaching?
I know for me, when an instructional coach came in to teach my kids, and I was there co-teaching too, every time she would speak, they would always be looking at me to see if like what she was saying was really okay, and so that was an obstacle for me.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead. I think you have to make sure you mesh well with your team teacher, or there might be a little bit of a power struggle there if you're in disagreement about something, and that could be a problem.
That's exactly what I was gonna say as well. You've got to be able to work with the person that you're co-teaching with, or team teaching with, because you're working so closely. You've got to be able to share the same ideas and the same way of thinking about the classroom.
And the good thing about co-teaching is that you have two different ideas that come in together, and being receptive to the ideas that come in is always a challenge, especially if like you don't know if that idea is gonna work, but you've got to be open to that communication there. So this brings us to the benefits, and we've talked about some of the benefits there throughout. So we have a smaller teacher to student ratio. Students can learn from two different teaching styles. There's different perspectives to bring ideas to planning and classroom management, and easier to implement differentiated instruction. So like with you can have a smaller group to kind of push those kids that need to be pushed, or to remediate those skills that the kids may need to master that standard that's being taught. Bring ideas to planning and classroom management. Does anybody have any comments on like planning and classroom management there, like how ideas can be brought into co-teaching?
I think you definitely want to have some planning time together and brainstorm a little bit before you ever present it to in class. I think that would be extremely important to do that.
So there's a quote at the bottom of the screen here. A diverse mix of voices leads to better discussions, decisions, and outcomes for everyone. So how do you think that kind of pertains to co-teaching? Like how would a diverse mix of voices lead to better discussions? So can two co-teachers bring better discussions into the classroom that they're teaching, and then the decisions and outcomes?
I mean, even if you have a healthy debate, you're bringing new ideas and showing different viewpoints, and people always grow from that.
Anything else? Okay, so the next part is, what are the obstacles and how do I overcome them? One thing that's not on here that we did mention is during co-teaching, like the noise level, and kids getting distracted or not knowing who to turn to, or who's in charge in a way. And then the other thing is feeling like you're disrespected or you're unheard, especially like if you're bringing new ideas in, and then, you know, some people just kind of roll them off and they're like, okay, we'll talk about that, and it's never discussed or anything like that. There's disagreements. That's human nature there. And then time management is obviously one, especially like when you're talking about planning, because again, planning times do not always align. So the biggest thing is you want to remain calm. You don't want to go at somebody like because we all know if somebody comes at you very confrontational, like you're not going to have a good conversation in that moment. Handle the problem, go to the co-teacher and attempt to resolve the issue. be a good listener, be available to sit and plan together, discuss lesson outcomes, provide feedback, and then make sure your expectations are known for each other in the class. So, like you said, you had an instructional coach in your room, and they were looking at you like, are they telling us the truth? Like, is their lesson right? Or like you said with the classroom management, like they might not know who's in charge or things like that. So you want to be sure that those expectations are made known. And then you want to make sure that even your class knows that. If you want each other to both be seen as equals, you want to make sure they know that you're both teachers, you're both in charge there. So, do you have any questions or comments about obstacles and overcoming them? Okay, so characteristics of good co-teachers: respect each other, define your roles and responsibilities, be flexible, communicate, and plan. The communication, that's a big one, especially when it comes to planning. So, I know in my experience with co-teaching, it's been walking down the hallway sometimes and being like, hey, so are we doing this today? Let's try this. And thankfully, all my co-teachers have been great at doing that. Or I'll come in and they'll be like, hey, we're going to try this today instead. And we just kind of roll with it. But our responsibilities are defined. They've been very welcoming and let me kind of treat those students like they're all my students as well. And then flexibility, you never know what's going to happen, and you just kind of got to roll with it. But that comes with teaching. So next we're going to watch this video, and I want you to think about what style they are using, what characteristics you noticed, and did you notice any obstacles?